On today's show, we welcome Rochelle Serna from RochelleSerna.com.
On some level, I saw adults as reluctant to make change.
Yeah.
And so they had done it already. They had already made decisions and I could save kids. Do you know what I mean? We have the ability to shape these minds into these amazing, thoughtful humans by giving them the right tools. And then I realized you can't do any of that until you help parents learn how to open their minds and connect with their children.
That's coming up. Okay, here we go. Rochelle Serna on the show today, an expert on healthy pregnancy, getting prepared for pregnancy, especially when it comes to optimizing diet and lifestyle, an expert on raising healthy kids. And she was one of our amazing experts on our Healthy Baby series we launched a little while back. If you missed that and are interested in some of the best practices when it comes to fertility, pregnancy, childbirth, breastfeeding, and more, you could find that series in your members dashboard at rebelhealthtribe.com. We have that sitting there for you in our premium members area, but if you just want to learn more, you can log into our site or become a premium member, and you'll see the baby series in your dashboard. Along with the Healthy Baby series, you'll also gain access to about 50 or more, maybe 60 at this point, expert interviews and webinar replays on a wide variety of health topics from mindset to weight loss to hormones, digestion, thyroid, and much, much more. You'll also have access to our discount club meal plans and, of course, our flagship program, Primal 90. All of that is waiting for you right now. Just go to rebelhealthtribe.com/join and become a member. And right now, you can get your first 30 days for free by using the code REBELPOD. That's rebelhealthtribe.com/join and use the code REBELPOD. Rochelle's topic for that series was baby's first foods and baby-led weaning, among some other things. Really great interview, which I personally learned a lot from, and I'm using that information now, actually. Our son is just about 3 weeks old now. That flew by already. But I'm telling you, I find myself going back to that baby series and finding more and more helpful information. On this podcast, though, we didn't talk too much about that stuff. As always, we took this time to learn more about our guest. Rochelle has quite a story. Turns out, by the way, our families are from the same exact town in Italy, which I thought was really cool. My great-grandparents and her grandparents came from Bari, Italy. So that was interesting to learn. We also talked about a really pivotal moment in her life where she basically heard a baby crying in her condo complex and zeroed in on that crying, kind of followed the sound, probably not in a creepy way at all, but, she kind of stalked the baby. I'm not judging, but it turns out that moment really defined kind of her career trajectory from that moment on. Really interesting. So she talks a lot about that. Anyway, I was flying solo on this one. Mike was not available. I think he was getting some blood work done and hopefully not passing out from that. But anyway, here's my conversation with Rochelle Serna. Hey everyone, welcome to the Rebel Health Tribe Podcast. My name is Joe Rignola, and today we are sans Michael Roseline. I think Michael's getting some blood work done and hopefully not passing out. But we are joined today by Rochelle Serna from RochelleSerna.com. That's kind of tough to say.
Tongue twister.
A little bit.
RochelleSerna.com.
Awesome. How are you?
Yeah. I'm good. I'm so excited to be on. I'm so excited about this podcast. You guys do so many wonderful things, and I love that you're getting out to this avenue too. I had a podcast for a little while actually with another mom, but being moms, we had to kind of find our balance. And but it was such a fun way to get out to people and such a fun way to connect with others. So yeah, I'm excited to be a guest today.
Well, thank you so much for being here. We're excited too. We're recording a whole bunch of these first, so I'm not sure what episode this is going to end up being, but we're trying to record like 10 or 15 first and then kind of put them out there in rapid fire. So that seems to be the algorithm that iTunes likes. So
yes, this is what I've heard. I mean, iTunes is so quiet about what they really like, but I don't think it hurts to just get a bunch out there at once.
Yeah.
So
yeah, cool. So, I definitely want to get to, how you started doing what you're doing, but, let's talk about where did you grow up?
So I was born and raised in Los Angeles, on the city, like outside of the city. I was on the coast, and it's actually where I live. I've come back now. I left for a little while, but I came back, and so I lived always next to the ocean, and I'm such a wimp in the cold weather. I've been completely programmed to enjoy the warm and being necessarily like loving the beach and the sand particularly. I have to be next to the ocean, so it's brought me back. And yeah.
So that's interesting. You grew up in Los Angeles. Usually when you hear someone growing up in Los Angeles, usually like their parents or something were in show business or something. Was there any show business in your family?
No, I mean, my dad's kind of like locally famous. No, he no. Well, he owns my family's actually in the complete opposite business of what we do. They sell pizza, and pizza.
Oh, that's hysterical.
Yeah, and my grandpa started a little shop on the beach in Hermosa Beach in 1953. And so it's been there for a long time, and it's one of those places, I'm telling you, like if you're gonna have pizza and you're gonna have, doing a shameless plug for my family. But no, it's been there for a long time, and there's a lot of heart and love in the food. So it's kind of known even in like, I mean, I've been in like Florida before, and people have been like, oh, I've heard of Mickey's Deli. So my dad's like locally, everyone knows about Mickey's Deli here. So it's kind of fun that way. But no, we were not famous, not in the movie business, anything like that.
Oh, I have to ask, being, a deli and pizza, that sounds awfully like New York. Was your grandpa originally from New York?
My grandfather is actually from Italy.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, we're Italian. I'm only half, but I like to claim full Italian.
I'm the same way. I'm the same way. I'm half Italian, as by our last names, obviously, but I'm also half Irish, and there's probably some German and Scottish, and who knows what else is in there, but kind of a mutt. But I kind of identify with the Italian side myself.
I feel like that. Yes, Italians love to claim Italianness, I've found. But then also I was raised on the Italian side of my family, and that being our business, it's always been a really big part of who I am. So I definitely identify with the Italian. And yeah, so my grandpa was from Italy, and now, I wish I knew the language and stuff. We're kind of far from the main roots, but we've still got the food and the traditions and the seafood at Christmas and, and all that stuff. So.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So what part of Italy was he from?
He was from Bari.
Oh my God, it's so weird. That's exactly where my family was from.
Really? That's so cool.
That's the weirdest thing.
Never been. I know very little about it, but I just know that's where they're from. So.
Oh, that's so fun. No, me either. I've never been to Italy in my life, but that's exactly where my family is from. But that's so funny. Is your grandpa still around?
Unfortunately, he passed away couple of years, gosh, like 13 years ago now.
Wow.
Feels like he's been known for a lot longer than that. But yeah, so we've been carrying on the tradition with the family business, and it's fun now. My brother, who's just a year younger than me, a year and a half younger than me, he's in the, at the deli a lot and helping my dad kind of bring it into this generation. So it's a really fun thing to watch that come into 3 generations. And I think that that business entrepreneurship has been such a huge factor in my life. My mom actually, when she was 19, owned a nail salon, and she did, she opened a business too. And my brother actually opened a burger place when he was a junior in college. So even though they're kind of across the board in what we do and not necessarily like health related businesses, that entrepreneurship has had a really big impact on my life. And it's highly encouraged in my family. So it's it's like a fun thing that connects us all, and a good, nice, like encouragement to just take risks, which I think has been a blessing in my life. So.
Yeah, that's excellent. So I was heavy on entrepreneur, not necessarily so heavy on health.
But actually, funny enough, my family eats mostly like very holistically, and they've learned through the years. And my mom's like just like me. We're like carbon copy. I'm just like her, I guess. So they eat at home very differently, but it's just the businesses that we grew up having. So, yeah.
Sure. Were you kind of an influence on their eating styles, at least lately, or was healthy eating kind of something you grew up with?
No, I don't think they'd ever admit it, but I totally influenced them.
Yeah, no, totally. I gather that. Yeah.
My mom and I both, we kind of took the journey together. It's a really funny story how I came into like living holistically, but we kind of like took the road together, and so it's definitely impacted the family. They can't like ignore the way that they feel when they eat this way or live, you know, a less toxic lifestyle. But I'd be hard pressed to get my dad to admit that it had anything to do with my mom and I's influence. But yeah.
Sure, absolutely. Have you talked them into doing like some gluten-free pizza or something, or cauliflower plus crust pizza?
Yeah, he actually.
Do they?
Yes, he's got gluten-free pizza crust now available, and they also do like lettuce wrapped sandwiches. So I feel like those are some big, and they have like some non-GMO popcorn that they sell instead of the chips, and like they try to put some things in there. And for a little beach deli liquor store, it's a unique find. So
pizza deli and liquor store, that's what it is.
And convenience store. It's like literally the most random thing. You can walk in and get like vodka, toilet paper, a pizza, and a lottery ticket. Like, and actually, they just sold the winning lottery ticket. Not the big one, not the really big one, but the one right before, the 27 million. They sold it out of Deli. So
wow.
Yeah.
This keeps getting more and more intriguing.
I know. It's just a really fun little story. I know about my dad.
That's amazing. So, so you get along with your family, and did you work in the pizza shop at all when you were growing up?
Oh yeah, when I was like 12 and 15, I just go and hang out, and we'd learn all about it. And then when I got older, at like 15, 16, I got like a regular job on Sundays there, and I was working behind the register. But we pretty much grew up in the deli, so you know, learning awesome. How to toss pizza crust and all that stuff.
Yeah. So. Very cool. And you get along with your family, even working with them. You got along with them?
Well, yeah, I think that, you know, my degree's in child family development, so going through that,
that can't hurt. Yeah.
Yeah, it really helped me understand. My dad and I are very similar. We have very similar temperaments, and we're both kind of dominant and opinionated people. And so we kind of butt heads growing up, I think, like happens with a lot of people. But going through child development and really understanding like the makeup of us from a like just subjective level really helped me understand him better. And we have a much better relationship now. Not that it was ever bad, but it was just, I think the in-depth understanding and getting away from the house and kind of being able to look back on it like, oh, okay, I get where he was coming from, you know?
Yeah. Just growing up, I guess, does exactly. That too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But my mom and brother, there's only 4 of us, and my mom and brother are pretty mellow. Although my brother's getting more, like, as he gets older and has his business and stuff, he's definitely coming opinionated side. But they're pretty mellow, so my personality got along with them always. So, yeah.
So is pizza your favorite food, or is it just that you grew up with it so much that you actually don't like pizza anymore?
I mean, I haven't had like a pizza from there in so long, but I'm sure I would just enjoy it just as much. But I'm sure my Italian family wouldn't like this admittance, but I think Mexican food is probably my favorite. Wow. But I married a Mexican, so it works out. I've got my Mexican food here. He cooks for us. So
yeah. I'm kind of partial to Mexican food myself. I just grew up with the same sort of thing. Every Wednesday was pasta night, and Thursday was pizza night, and it was Sunday was pasta night again. And
I know. I feel like even with the food we eat now, I get stuck in a rut. And I actually recently just got like a CSA, you know, the community supported agriculture. Yeah. I got this box that sends you not just fruits and vegetables like a lot of them do, but they send you grass-fed meats and recipes, so you know what to do with it changing, because with the busy schedule, it's nice to have real local food that's delivered to my door with a recipe to cook it. I'm like, this is, you know, saving me from that rut of the same food over and over and no time to cook and all that stuff. So
sure.
Yeah, it's really fun.
I mean, it's not always easy, right? It's. I mean, I think people think because we're in this sort of business, it sort of comes easy to us. But I'm the same way. I get sort of stuck in ruts where I want the convenience food and I want things to be easy, and you start to eat the same things over and over again, or maybe even slide back into eating foods that aren't the healthiest, but it's not always easy, right?
Yeah, I mean, we actually went into like a little gluten-free pizza phase for like a week because it gets really overwhelming. And I think this year I've like gone through a big transition of realizing I need to like ground myself a little bit and kind of see, you know what it's like to have a family and have a little one at home.
Sure.
And I'm also, it's like I'm a wife and a mother and a business owner. And so, trying to figure that out. And I hate the word balance. Like, I really don't like it because growing up in an entrepreneurial family, it's like hustle, hustle, hustle. But it's just figuring out joy in that hustle. Cause I'm, I have to have that joy. So, I'm coming more like, I'm liking the word balance a little bit more, but just trying to figure that out. And the food thing, it's like I always tell people, they're like, oh, isn't it so expensive to eat that way? And I was like, actually, vegetables really aren't that expensive. So if you balance out, it's not necessarily the expense, it's the time. It really is a time commitment. But when you've got it pre-planned out like these boxes do for me, I find that it's so much more enjoyable. And I had to cook with the love that I had before rather than like, oh, I need to go to the market and make sure I have this one spice to go in here. And like they take care of that for me. So.
Oh, wow. That's great. Yeah, that's very cool. So was there a definite transition for you, or was it sort of a gradual thing? Was there some sort of catalyst that made you really transition to sort of a more holistic, healthier lifestyle?
Yes, absolutely. 100%. It's a really funny story, actually. I grew up, we had the deli, and my parents are very like open-minded to the change, but we just didn't understand. We knew nothing about living healthy. My brother played sports. I was, I didn't play sports. I watched him play, but we'd go around and we ate a lot of fast food because we were always on the road. He was doing club teams. We traveled the country actually to have him play. And so we were not, it wasn't something that we understood or lived by growing up. I think my favorite, I remember there was a time when we were on the road a lot, and it'd be like one night we'd have Taco Bell and the next night we'd have Wiener Schnitzel. I mean, it was just lived and we loved it. And my mom cooked, but it just was different than it is now. And then I was in college and I had studied child development, but not once did they bring up nutrition or lifestyle in development.
Wow. Okay.
I can't understand how they don't talk about that, but, they didn't talk about it at all. And I was learning just about human brain development. It was so intriguing and interesting to me. And then I became a doula, which is you help women through labor. And I also became a postpartum doula. So I was 19 when I did that. And I knew I loved kids and babies and I was going to be a teacher. Then I went to child development and was maybe going to do preschool. And then I started learning how to help women through labor. And so I was just obsessed with all things baby. And I was in my apartment. It was a condo complex actually at the time. And I heard a baby crying. This is a true story. It's like sad. I get embarrassed to admit it because it's so silly. But I heard a baby crying and I decided to follow the cry. Like what kind of creepy person does that? But I did. And I followed this baby's cry and I saw a dad wearing a baby and the baby was really just not happy. And he was trying to rock and soothe the baby and they were out on the balcony. And I decided to wave up to them and I was like, hey, I'm down here. I live over there and I heard the baby crying and I just want to let you know if there's anything I can do to help. I would love to help if I can, come over and just give you guys a little break. I mean, I'm right there if you need me. And that was it. He invited me up, we shook hands and I gave him my information where I was and I didn't hear from him till a month later. And I got a note on my door and it said, hey, we actually had a babysitter set up, but we don't anymore. Give us a call if you're interested. And that moment literally changed my life because they are two chiropractors and the wife was a clinical nutritionist. The baby was 5 months when I started babysitting, working with her. And, I was going to help raise their child. So they wanted me to know how to do that in the way that they lived. And they were not forceful at all. They were very gentle about it, but they lived in a completely different world than I had ever experienced before. Just everything was very holistic. They ate very clean. And I soaked it, like, this is the missing link. Like, this is child development. Like, how did I not learn about this before? And I ended up living with them, being a live-in nanny, because I graduated college, couldn't afford to stay. And they were like, we don't want you to leave yet. So I ended up living there. So it was like an immersion course in healthy living and holistic lifestyle. They cooked for me and taught me how to cook that way. And they, really just opened my mind, introduced me to mentors that I've had along the way. And obviously they've been huge mentors. And then they just, books and all sorts of different things that just completely changed the course of my life, literally in every single way. And
wow.
Yeah. So, and I'm an all or nothing person. So I don't do anything, like, kind of. So I really took to this stuff, and I was like, I made an immediate life change. And it wasn't for me though. I'd come from this like really baby background, and I knew that, I love adults, but like my heart is with children, babies. Like I always say, it took me like a while to be like, yeah, I like adults too. Cause like, I really just have a heart for children's well-being. And so I did it cause I knew I was going to have babies one day. And I was like, oh, I should get my body in a place where it's worthy of carrying a child, and it's going to give that child what it needs. And then also, if I want them to live this lifestyle where they're nurtured that way holistically, then I need to make these things, part of my life so that I can carry it on. I can't just live this way and not expect them, live whatever way I want and expect them to live a healthy lifestyle. So
do as I say, not as I do. It doesn't really work.
Yeah, exactly. And so, then from there, I started taking classes and going to seminars. And I remember going to an autism seminar, and it was like the autism nutrition part of it that I went to. And I remember all these parents around me, and they were listening to this person speak that had, like, it was a very unapologetic speech about why we should, give up certain things and triggers and just basically nurture our child. And they had such a hard time. Like, you heard people in the crowd just like, I can't do that. I can't. It was so scary to them, the idea of giving these things up, and they couldn't see it. And I just remember thinking like, man, we need to do more supporting these people and just supporting people in general, and hopefully stopping this epidemic. And so my life just kind of like slowly changed from there. Kind of quickly, but slowly changed from there. And I didn't have any intention of doing anything with it. I just knew I wanted my children to have the opportunity to start with the best that I could give them, and I always tell my mom, like, she's always like, oh, I wish I would have done this, or I wish I didn't eat that. And I wish I wouldn't have known, I wouldn't have known about this. And like, Mom, you can't blame yourself for what you didn't know, and I never want anyone to ever feel that way. I just think if I do know that information, then I want to apply it. So that's kind of my story and how it all came to be. But yeah.
Yeah, moms do. I think parents do that. They kind of, kind of beat themselves up on different things. But I just want to. So you were a doula, right? First you were a doula, then you were going to school for child development, and then you stalked the crying baby and met the chiropractors.
Yeah. So I actually went to doula training when I was in school. I was 19, so I was a sophomore. I think I was a sophomore. I'm kind of young for my grade. I was always, but I was in San Diego, so I must have been a junior by then. But anyway,
doing the child development and doula training at the same time.
Yeah, and I did the doula training, and I couldn't, unfortunately, practice the way I wanted to with birth because you have to be on call. And as a full-time college student, I couldn't really be on call like that. But the information, though, was like amazing and life-changing, just understanding birth from that level and how to support women through it. And I still use those things that I learned in everything I do. But I was able to attend a couple births. I did them just kind of to help people out. I didn't ever do it as a business. I attended births of some people that didn't have a partner or were my age and kind of going through this by themselves. And then I did a little bit of postpartum work because that was easier to help women through the postpartum period. It was easier to schedule around. But it was for nothing else. It was just for the information of kind of how to support women on a level that I hadn't understood before. And it made me like understand adults more because I'd always been so into like just children, and I didn't like get the connection. I know that sounds so silly, but it was like,
no, was there like a certain, like, was there like a certain amount of intimidation with adults, or you just kind of connected better with kids? Or
I think it was that on some level I saw adults as like so reluctant to make change. And so like not hopeless, but like they had done it already. They had already made decisions, and I could save kids. Do you know what I mean? Like it was like on this level, I was like, and that was before I even understood nutrition or anything. It was just like, we have the ability to shape these minds into these like amazing, thoughtful, like just humans by giving them the right tools. And then I realized like you can't do any of that until you help parents open their minds. And this, like I said, was all from a child development perspective. And so then I even thought about doing social work and going into homes and helping parents just learn how to open their minds and connect with their children. But I thought it would break me because I'm just a really emotional person. So it was like one of two outcomes. I was either going to become really like callous and to everything, or I was going to, be broken down every day. So I was like, I wish I could have followed that path. I think it's an amazing path, but I just didn't have the heart for it, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not, it's not an easy thing. I unfortunately, the social workers that I've known, a couple of them, they do tend to turn into the former. They become a little more callous and colder, I guess. I think people start out with really good intentions, and it's amazing work. These people are changing lives, but I think a part of you has to shut down a little bit when you do that kind of work. Yeah.
I know that's kind of what I saw too. And with teaching also, because I thought I was going to be a teacher for a while. And I realized when I was in the school system in San Diego, I was like, this is, these teachers all of the life has been taken out of them through this system. So I lots of different changes and kind of different paths, but it was the stocking of the baby that really, at the end of my college career, and I had already done the doula stuff and the child development stuff, already done my internships and all that with the social work, but I went and I stocked that baby, and that changed my life. And they're still, we're going down this weekend. I'm sorry, in a couple weekends to go see them, and we still are with them all the time. And now I have my baby, and so it's really fun. Their child has such a connection with my child, and it's a really cool thing to watch now. And I got to see her grow up from the very beginning. Actually, the hardest thing I ever did still to this date was have to leave because she was too to really understand when that happened. But so.
Oh boy. Yeah, that's tough. So I want to ask about postpartum doula. I'm not sure I'm familiar with that. I'm not sure a lot of listeners may be familiar with that. What exactly is a postpartum doula?
So that's a great question, and so true, because I hear very little about postpartum doulas, but they are essentially there to help the mother through the fourth and the father through the fourth trimester, or that's what they call it, that postpartum time. But you've just come home with your baby, you're not sleeping, you're usually not eating because you literally don't have time. You're like, how does this child, you remember, it's like Mike probably still remembers from that, 18 years ago or 16 years ago. But, your baby's only sleeping, pooping, and crying, and yet you have no time to do anything. And you're like, how is this possible? And so that doula that comes in, she's really taking care of the things so that you can enjoy your time with your baby. She's going to be cooking you meals. She can be cleaning your house. She's helping you with nursing. We're trained in, how to latch on and stuff. And by no means like a lactation consultant, but just the basics. Or techniques for just being able to rest and giving the mom the ability to have that time with baby. I think in the United States, I'm sure you've heard this a million times, but we really take that time for granted, and we think like, oh, we need to be up the next day and we need to be doing all this stuff. And we have this pressure to like look perfect, go. Back to, pre-baby weight. And in a lot of other cultures around the world, they take that time, at least 40 days, and they have the mom massaged every day, and they kind of like make her stay in the home a little bit, but it's like the only time that you have with your baby. And so the doula kind of helps facilitate that. And I think depending on who the doula is and what her, what role she decides to take on. It can also be a way to, manage visitors. I know for me, I didn't want anyone around, and I felt really guilty about that because I think, everyone wants to come visit, but for me, I was like, I want my time with my family. I want like a couple weeks to adjust. Like I'm healing, I'm in pain, like just, let me be. But it was really hard for me to say. And so I had midwives, and they kind of did a lot of that for me. They like told all my family, like, she's going to want time to rest and stuff like that. But I think the doula can help to facilitate that as well. There's also nighttime doulas. So if mom is not co-sleeping, nighttime doulas will stay awake with the baby during the night. And anytime the baby starts like moving and rooting and things like that, showing that they're hungry, the baby will be brought to mom to nurse and then brought back. And so that can help with, like, the twins will have nighttime doulas just because to help with the management at night and to help mom get a little bit of rest. But there's all sorts of different, a lot of times it ends up like turning into nannying, which I think is why it is a really difficult thing, because they really have a totally different job than a nanny does. But it's really, like, motherhood support rather than childcare, but it like is a fuzzy line. So
it's kind of whatever it needs to be, I guess. But I think I can imagine a postpartum doula being really helpful, particularly with, like you said, with twins or with a second child. I know with us, we're expecting a second child in May. So yeah.
Know that. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness. I'm excited.
But there's this, yeah, thank you. We're excited. But there's this, Mason's 4 now, and for the first 4 years of his life, it's been just him, so it's going to be an interesting transition. So I can imagine, we're like, everyone says sleep when the baby sleeps. So when the baby gets here, you're supposed to rest when the baby gets here. But it's like, but what about him? We want to be able to, spend time with him too. And when the baby sleeps, that might be a good chance to sort of spend some, some alone time with him. So it's an easier transition. So I can imagine, that, a postpartum doula would be really helpful in that situation too. But also, if not for anything, but just to make sure that the mom and parents sleep when they should.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's honestly like nice to do when they're postpartum, is just like let the mom rest when she needs rest, and dad too. Now we're seeing dads being able to stay home. Before, even when I was being trained when I was 19 years old, that wasn't really as common. So yeah, both parents letting them rest. And I imagine it would be very helpful for a second child too, because like you said, I mean, that transition is completely different. I think about that often, actually, like, how does that work? Because I felt like, my time was so consumed with just this infant, like to also be able to balance and transition the other child whose family's growing is something you'll have to update us on.
Yeah. But how old is your son now?
He's going to be 2 in April.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's adorable.
Yes. It's a really fun age, because they're just so curious.
It keeps getting better. There are certain challenges, of course, but it's amazing. They keep getting more fun, and the way he communicates, sometimes I think he's a teenager. It's hilarious. Some of the things that he says, it's so much fun. It's so much fun. It is
amazing. Well, as you've learned through this conversation, and probably anytime you talk to me, I'm just like obsessed with kids, but it's just like, they're so wise. And I think sometimes if we just listen to them, and they can teach us like so much through their curiosity and just like genuine, wonder in the world,
openness. So, and
totally.
This still, there's a connection they have with nature and whatever you want to call it. That's we could learn a lot from. Yeah, absolutely. So what do you have your website, RochelleSerna.com. What do you have going on there? What kind of programs do you coach people one-on-one?
Yeah. So this whole story that we've talked about today is basically prompted me to create a fertility cleanse program. And I do other things too. I love helping women through pregnancy, and I love baby's first foods and baby's nutrition. But as you know, like through my life, I've gone further and further back. And so my heart is really in that preconception time, because we have so much power. We can really empower ourselves in that time and set up the building blocks for the rest of our life. So last year, a majority of last year, I spent writing my 4-month fertility cleanse program, which is currently closed for enrollment, but it'll be open for enrollment. I do it in groups. So open soon. I haven't decided on the exact date that the next one will run. But yeah, and that it really talks about just changing everything, or, you know, not changing, but like implementing different practices to detox the home, the body care, the diet, you know, get mindfulness practices going. Because I always say, if there's one thing I could change, like I didn't work on my mind enough. Like I had the body down, like I knew what to eat and I knew how to take care of my body and I knew how to get my home clean. But like, man, I didn't prepare for the mama guilt or the, you know, the self-care, the necessity and the value on self-care and things like that. So I really try to implement that into the program as well. And so it's really just like a whole body thing. And it's for both, you know, mom and dad. And so that's like where my heart is. And that's what I've got going on over there. But I also have that baby's first foods program, which is just, you know, basic information about when, what, how, why, you know, all that stuff. And,
awesome.
And then one-on-one, I am going back and forth right now.
Okay.
I had some spots open, and then I feel like I'm just really trying to figure out how to be present with my son and still do what I love doing. And like I said, not have all the joy sucked out of it. So I am not taking one-on-one clients currently, but it's something that might be opening up in a little bit when I can try to figure out my balance here. So
yeah, but what we found too, I mean, I used to do one-on-one coaching. Mike's phasing out of doing one-on-one coaching. We're going to start doing some group coaching. But what we found is, you know, when we put together a program online, we could reach out to so many more people and help so many more people. And it's, you know, I think we all have goals that are similar to let's change the world. It's hard to do that one at a time, you know, so. Yeah,
I know it's so difficult because there's such, like, I have such compassion for being able to work one-on-one with people. I think there's something amazing about it. But it is, I honestly, like, you could get way more out of the programs that I've built online than you probably could from a bunch of sessions one-on-one anyway, because of time. So people will still be getting me and more out of those programs, but I just, you know, feels like something that we should be doing, or I should be doing, is the one-on-one sometimes, but we'll see.
That's life of an entrepreneur. Your dad must be proud, right? You followed sort of in the footsteps of being an entrepreneur, like him and his dad, right?
Yeah, I think that they, you know, they're excited for whatever we do. I just, like, I've tried to work in management positions before, and it's so difficult because of the way that I was raised to not want to, like, you know, have my own thing. So my dad's definitely proud. My parents are proud that we've followed our hearts over anything else, and definitely encourage that. And I know a lot of entrepreneurs in this field that I've talked to haven't had that same experience, and they actually have to fight against, like, oh, why don't you get that stable job or whatever, you know, that they hear from family. And I haven't had that. If anything, they're like, you better not get a job. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of the opposite for me. I think that parents still want to sort of, I think they're scared and they want to protect us, and there's that something about the stability. That's been my experience. But have you thought about your own son? And, you know, it seems like he's, you know, probably has no choice but to sort of follow that same sort of entrepreneurial spirit and kind of being a leader type of thing. But have you thought about him going to school, or are you going to homeschool? Have you given that some thought? I'm sure you have.
Yes. It's such a difficult one because it's like, you know, I'm trying to just balance the things I'm doing now, and the idea of also adding on, like, giving my child his entire education is intimidating, but it's something that I would lie if I don't say, like, we plan and talk about it all the time. I mean, we definitely, as of right, plan on homeschooling. Just because it's funny, because people associate it with all the other things that I do in my life and the way that I live. But it was something in my plan long before, just because, like I said, I was in the school system. I was going to become a teacher, and I saw what was going on, which was a lot of teachers losing their ability to actually teach, and they had to follow these rules and these guidelines, and they had kids, I live in Los Angeles right now. I was doing my studying in San Diego. Those are both places with a lot of different cultures, which is amazing and some of my favorite parts of living in this area. But it makes classrooms, when we've got, 4 different languages, and some kids that don't speak at all, and some kids that are trying to learn the language and all this stuff, and teachers aren't given the tools to be able to handle that situation. It's an amazing environment to be in if the tools are there, but if they're not there, there is. And it's, it was heartbreaking, honestly, to see how the kids that were understanding the material had to sit with it for 2 weeks trying to move on from it, because she had to stay with the ones that weren't understanding. And then after 2 weeks, if they didn't get it, they were just left behind because she had to move on to teach to the test. So, I saw that happen in different classrooms, and I just thought, man, if I can do something different, I would be really happy. And luckily there are some schools out there that are trying to do something different, charter schools and stuff like that have 7-year wait lists. But there are some options out there. But I went to, gosh, I'm sorry. I could talk about forever about all
go
these.
for it.
When I was in college, because I was planning on being a teacher, I entered a program called the Hutchins program at Sonoma State, because I went to Sonoma 2 years, then transferred. I missed the sunshine and transferred down to San Diego State, even though it's just Northern California. It's a lot rainier up there. But I was up there, and I was in the Hutchins program, and it was a program about teaching teachers how to genuinely teach on all levels. And so what we would do is we'd read novels. It was a 12-unit course each semester. You would read novels about everything from art to psychology, and then informational books or religious texts, and we would all talk about it for 3 hours. We would read this book, and then we'd come to class, and there's 12 people in a class, and we'd talk about what it meant to us and how it related to the world, and we brought it into real life context. And then on Fridays, because we'd meet Monday, Wednesday, Friday, on Fridays we'd go do something with it. So if we read about modern art, we'd go and visit a museum, and if we were reading about Buddhism, we'd go and visit a Buddhist temple. And so it was really cool, because we'd take the information in our own way, and then we'd sit in a class that had a teacher, but it was student led. So we'd encourage the conversation in the class based off of what it meant to us. And then we'd go experience that thing. Yeah. And that was life changing. I always had a really hard time sitting in a conventional classroom, and this was so unconventional. I think it was the only way I actually, my parents could get me to stay in college, because I was I want to go do something. I don't want to do this anymore. Right. Even though I loved what I was learning, those first 2 years can be grueling when you're going back and learning everything you just learned for 12 years, So it was amazing. And that made me realize if I could do that with my son, if I could teach him and then apply it, and then, just give him this course of getting his hands on things they let him
experience it.
Yeah. So, and that was way before, like I said, I got into any of the holistic stuff or any of that. So even though people think homeschooling and they think oh, she's a hippie and she's doing all this stuff, but it really is just from so many different experiences I've had. And so that's our plan now. Have you guys?
He's in a Montessori school right now, which is, it's similar to what you were saying. It's sort of even at 3, 4, 5 years old, they sort of determine what the kid wants to learn for the day and what he's interested on. They sort of drill down a little bit deeper on that. And, but he's also learning, they learn basics. He's learning how to write and learning how to read. And, he's insanely smart at 4 years old. But, I think, imagine, you were in college and having trouble sitting there and learning and how grueling that was. Imagine what that's like for, someone who's in kindergarten or first grade, how, they're supposed to sit still, really. And recesses being cut more and more where they're in school 6, 7, 8 hours a day, and there's 15 minutes of recess. It's ludicrous. So yeah, he's doing the Montessori thing now. We're looking at some alternative schools. There's just zero chance of him going to a regular public school. That's just not going to happen. Yeah. So,
I know that
the homeschool. Yeah. the homeschool thing is intimidating. So we're not sure about that, but yeah, anything but public school.
I know. Yeah. And I just wish it was different, because I think that, of course, there's so much joy out of the people that I grew up. I think that those relationships were wonderful. I do believe that there's so many ways to socialize other than that, like sports and things like that. But if I could find a school that I felt like did, like you said, I know there's some great Montessori schools, and it's just once they get into that K through 12 that it gets a little difficult. And but like I said, they're trying to make changes, I think, to the system, and eventually I think it's unfortunately going to break going the way it is right now. So I think it will get better.
It seems like they're preparing kids for a world that doesn't exist. It's like, I think kids growing up are going to have to figure out what their passions are, figure out how to make a living doing what they love to do.
Yeah, exactly. And that student-led stuff, that's like the key to everything. If we give them the ability to make the choices, they will almost always make the right choices. But But
it was like you were saying, they're so malleable, they're so completely open and curious about everything, and it just seems that when they reach that age of going to school, that starts to get. I saw a great quote the other day that said, "Every child is an artist until they're told that they are not."
That is a great quote. I really like that. Yeah, it's so true. It's funny because like just today, my mom and I were talking about. My mom has my son right now, so that he's not running around like a wild banshee over here.
That would be fine.
But. Got him right now, and she said, "Okay, are you ready to go? Do you want to go?" And he said, "No." And she was like, "Oh, well, mommy's going to be busy. We need to go." And he was like, "No." And she said, "See this?" It was so funny because she having like him being able to say no. Like it's kind of sad that in the future we teach him that it's bad. She's like, "I know he's not trying to hurt my feelings. I know that he's just being 100% honest and saying, I know I want to stay with mommy, but it's kind of sad that we grind that out of them. We're like, no, you're not allowed. That's going to hurt their feelings. You can't say no." But it is just interesting because it correlates with this conversation. It was just something that kind of dawned on her, like, it's okay. You can say no. That's okay. So it was kind of but it is, will we ever know exactly how to teach our children or what to do or where to put them in school? I don't know. It's kind of crazy, but
it's tough. I mean, the most important, we want to make sure they continue to be critical thinkers, or I don't know if that's something that can be taught. I think it gets taught out of us. I think we're naturally sort of critical thinkers. That's why they ask why about everything.
Every I know. Yeah. So we'll see. There's every once in a while I'll do a math problem, and Oscar, my husband, will be like, "Yeah, you're not going to teach our son math." There's I'm like, we'll see what happen.
my wife and I are not. Math is not our strong point. But there's communities, there's networks. We'll figure it out.
With one another's support, we'll figure it out. So
yeah, exactly. So when folks go over to your website, I know you've got like a really cool free bundle there. You want to tell folks about that?
Sure. Yeah. So I really, more than anything, like getting people information. And so if you go to my website, you'll see that you can get a little baby prep bundle, I've called it. And it's got information about supplements, information about, healthy body care products. It has some information about the top nutrients that really help to encourage fertility and pregnancy and things like that. So it's basically everything you need in one spot to start preparing your body for babies. And even though I call it the baby prep bundle, it will benefit you at any time pretty much, because when we get our bodies healthy for babies, we're basically just getting our bodies healthy. So it's got lots of good information and some specific to fertility things, of course, but information about how to just kind of clean up your environment, your home, and your body and mind for baby. So
awesome.
It's a good little package over there. Yeah.
That's great. Excellent. Very good. Rochelle Serna from RochelleSerna.com. Thanks so much. This was a great conversation.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
All right. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks.
Bye.
Okay, there it is, Rochelle Serna. I love talking to people who are that passionate about what they do. It makes the conversation easy and compelling, and Rochelle is such a great person. It's always a pleasure to speak with her. You can find Rochelle at RochelleSerna.com, and if you want to learn more about that Healthy Babies series and everything else we have to offer, just go to rebelhealthtribe.com/join. That's all for now. Thanks, folks. We'll talk to you soon.